Let's make a custom Valentine's Day sweatshirt together. So this sweatshirt was requested by a customer. She wanted to put two designs that we had available together. She wanted the Love Applique with a cheetah fabric inside and hot pink stitching. So before this video, I had flipped the garment inside out and ironed on fusible no-show, which is a cutaway stabilizer that you fuse and bond to the shirt with heat. So I ironed that on and I marked it with painter's tape to find the center point. So once I got it where I wanted it, it did the initial stitch, the placement stitch to show me where I needed to put the fabric. And now I have the cheetah fabric on the garment. So what you saw me peel off the back was Heat and Bond Light. Heat and Bond Light allows for the fabric to adhere with heat to the garment. It also prevents fraying around the edges, and you can see here that it looks a bit shiny on the back. That's the glue. So it feels like almost like rubbery on the back once you peel off that paper. So here I am cutting around everything, getting in all the small places. The inside of these little holes is like the most tedious to me. I'm so afraid every time that I'm gonna puncture the garment and mess it up somehow. But I'm sticking it back on the machine, changing the thread to hot pink, threading my needle, and I'm about to set it up to stitch. Again, this is an applique design. This stitch that you're seeing it do now is the final stitch around. It's called a satin stitch. So there are a few different kinds of stitches. There can be blanket stitch, there can be zigzag, there can be satin. When you are thinking of this finished look to stitching, this is going to be called satin stitch. If you have an applique design that you want and you're looking for it to look polished and finished, all like that, that's what you're going to want to ask for. So I tore it off the machine. I'm going to pull away the peel and stick stabilizer, clean it all up from the back so that it's not bulky or hard. I try and get as much as I can off, so got it out of the letters. Now I'm pulling the cutaway fusible no-show from the garment, just so this isn't so much extra around the material. You can leave it, but there was a lot. I usually do this where I cut more than I need, and that's just so that I know that the design is fully covered and I'm not going to be stitching just straight into the garment. So now I'm trying to find a big enough piece of Tender Touch or cloud cover so that it isn't itchy on the skin. I imagine this customer will wear a shirt underneath this sweatshirt, but just in case, I don't want it to be scratchy. So I'm bonding that to the shirt with some heat. You do like up to 10 seconds, you just press it on. Now I'm turning it inside out and I'm pressing the fabric so that the Heat and Bond Light adheres that fabric to the shirt. Okay, next she wanted her monogram on the sleeve in our heart monogram font. I marked it with my painter's tape. Now I'm putting peel and stick on my hoop and I'm making sure that it's gonna fit in there the right way that I want. And I also put fusible no-show on the inside of the sleeve. I can't remember if we're gonna see that or not. So there's fusible no-show on the inside, getting my hoop prepped. And for this one, I'm actually going to put the sleeve through. So I'm putting the whole sleeve through. Sometimes I'll stretch the cuff and do it upside down, but for this one, I decided to do it this way so that I had plenty of room with the free arm machine to be able to move exactly how I wanted it to. So you see I've got plenty of space underneath, no big deal there. And now I can stitch it facing me. So I'm checking my radius, making sure that I'm not going to hit the frame at all. and that it's going to go right where I want it to. The only negative to doing it this way, to hooping it or floating it this way, I should say, is that there is a lot of bulk that you have to look out for, because the sweatshirt, you know, there's just a lot to it. So you have to make sure that that's out of the way, that it's not going to be stitching onto itself. So here it goes. I'm going to just trim this thread so that it isn't in the way, and let it keep running. And you'll see here, this is a different kind of stitch. This is called a fill stitch. And a fill stitch is when you can see how there's stitching all throughout the inside. So it's not a satin stitch, there's a wiper error. So I'll come back and clip that. Love it when that happens. Starts to pull on the garment. Oh, this is just painful. So I trim that away. All that means is that when the thread was supposed to cut itself, it just didn't. So that's called wiper error. But we fixed it, moving right along. So you see how this is stitched in all the way? That is a fill stitch, or flat fill is what I call it sometimes. Now I'm trimming around that fusible no-show. I did not put cloud cover on this part. And that's just because it's going to be on the arm, so it's not going to be quite as, you know, a sensitive area as the chest would be. So I folded it up. Before this, I took a picture of it with the sleeve monogram showing. For this one, I was shipping it, so I actually rolled it so that it would fit in my bag better. I'm going to try and push enough air out of it so that it can fit the dimensions that I want. I'm going to use some box tape, get that nice and flat. And after this, I put it in a poly mailer and I shipped it to the client.